welcome back to What's That Wednesdays, a series where I yap about things I hoard, from antiques I've collected or inherited to museum finds like what I'll be showing today, along with speaking about the museums I've been to, random gross history facts, and God knows what else. So the item I took off my wall this evening is this replica King Arthur Excalibur cadet sword. Amongst a whole haul of stuff, I purchased this from the Royal Armouries museum, probably one of the best gift shops I've had the honour of being in.
The sword has a beautiful design with knotwork birds on the guard, an engraved blade, and of course Excalibur King Arthur on the pommel.
Due to various retellings of Arthurian myths throughout history, many of the details have changed. In early French romances, the Excalibur and the sword in the stone were the same sword. However, in Thomas Mallory's version, the most famous version, they are treated as two separate swords. I realised I needed a tea. In this version, Arthur pulls a sword from the stone to prove his right to rule. After his original sword breaks in battle, he is then gifted the Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. So, do we believe that the Lady of the Lake gifted him a magical sword, or do we believe he was the only one worthy enough to be king and he was able to pull the sword from the stone? I'd like to think magical sword, but what do I know? I'm actually able to sharpen up my knowledge at the Royal Armouries Museum in Leeds. I visited back in June and was very positively overwhelmed with just how large it was, to be honest. We actually had to go for lunch halfway through and then come back again. Interestingly enough, the building was actually designed specifically around collections and displays, and I feel like you can really just tell walking through the museum. As you first enter, you're greeted with this huge, enormous staircase filled with over 2,500 different weapons and pieces, storing over 75,000 objects, spanning centuries from hunting, warfare, and ceremonial use. Everything from medieval swords to samurai armour to 20th century firearms. Getting to the end of my episode, I'd actually like to talk about a sword that I saw in the museum, a sword once owned by Chevalier Dion. Of course, being a bit gay, whenever I learn of LGBTQ history, I have to know more. Chevalier was a French diplomat, spy and soldier, famous for her gender fluidity and challenging gender norms throughout the 18th century. The sword I saw was one that she'd gifted to a friend, inscribed with, given by the Knightress of Eon to her old friend, George Keane Esquires, 1777, which was actually the same year that she transitioned and was officially recognised as a woman by King Louis XIV. And there you have my second episode of What's That Wednesdays. So come back next week to hear me yap about the Radium Girls and early 1900s antiques. 100s antiques. Fuck off.